Tired of feeling like you can't carry? AC is just not doing enough damage? Want a 1v9, but you picked a support, so you feel like you're kind of helpless? Don't worry. I've got the champion for you to solve all your problems. It's LUX, and yes, we're going to be playing here in the support role. So let's jump into the video and show how to carry, starting with the laning phase. Like this video if you want me to make more, and remember to subscribe and hit that bell for notifications so you don't miss out on any new videos. In today's video, we're going to be running the runes of Comet, Mana Flow Band, Absolute Focus, and Scorch, with the secondary in the Inspiration Tree with Biscuits and Cosmic Insight. On top of that, we're going to be running double adaptive AP with the extra armor to mitigate some of the poke damage in this lane. Also, as you can see, we're going to be running Barrier in this lane, as it really helps us stay alive in case of all-ins on top of us. We're usually not in range for any exhaust or ignites, so we like to prefer to use Barrier in situations like this, with our flash. So now jumping into the laning phase, as you can see right here, we are Lux and Kai'Sa, and we're versus Ezreal and Nami. Main thing to note about this situation too is that we've leashed. So because of that, the enemy team, as you can see right here, has gotten the ability to have pressure in the lane in the early stages since they have access to the wave. Now because of that, we will be entering the lane late. So first thing that you want to do in this situation is make sure that you're harassing as much as possible without taking any trade damage. Since Nami's W bounces off and heals, what you want to do for the most part is do your best to avoid Ezreal poke and hit them with the E whenever possible, usually avoiding auto attack trades in the early stages. So the first thing that you usually want to do when entering in the lane is just getting control of this brush. This will allow you to hit skill shots a lot easier since it's coming from Fog of War, and it will be a main topic of discussion for how to lane for the most part as Lux. Now since the Nami has moved forward, we're just shooting an E on her and just stepping back. It's not always important that you always get your passive proc off, which is the damage when you hit a spell and then auto attack. It's mostly just important for you to be harassing and get that Scorch on cooldown, the Comet on cooldown, and Mana Flow cycled. Now one thing to note in this situation is since we have leash in the bottom lane, our jungler comes from behind right here. Now since we aren't level 2 right now, we don't have the CC to set this up. So Rengar is just going to walk into lane, as you can see right here, realize that it's not really a gankable situation, and just push them off. This has mitigated most of the push, and if you didn't really know, it's usually the first full wave, plus on the second wave you're going to be killing all 3 of the melees to hit level 2 as your level 2 power spike. So, as you can see right here from the lane situation, the wave is on our side and they're scared to push up because they're afraid that the jungler could potentially wrap around and gank. Because of this gives us full access to the wave now, and we're going to be able to hit level 2 first since we can hit all of these melees safely, while they have to play too far back and only Ezreal can seem to Mystic Shot at the start. Priority is just making sure that we're auto-attacking this wave as much as possible and helping us hit level 2 at a reasonable time. As per usual too, we're always stepping into the brush just so that we can potentially look to fish for bindings or any other spells just to get harass off as much as possible, as you can see from this location. Now it's okay to miss some of your skill shots just as long as you're constantly using them and making sure that you're giving ground whenever they step forward. Now since this situation I'm too close to the Nami right now, it does make sense for me to auto attack just to do as much damage as possible since I ended up actually losing that trade in that regard. One thing that's important though now is that the enemy team has hit level 2. And as you can see right here, I'm giving ground since none of my skills are up, and they're pushing forward on me. Most of the time, the best way to trade is to always create a triangle on the player that you want to be damaging. So as you can see right here, they've created a triangle on me, so I'm just giving ground right now and stepping away. As you can see though, one thing that is important to note is the skills and what has gone down. So we already know that Nami heal has bounced off of them, and the bubble has now been launched. Now because of this, and all of the skills have missed, we have now created a triangle for us, where me and my AD carry can DPS their AD carry, since the Nami's cooldowns are down, and she's pretty far back. Another thing that's important to note whenever you're playing a skill shot champion like Lux, Morgana, Thresh, etc. is the situation of the wave. So now we've actually cleared pretty much all of this wave, and the wave is starting to push in. This gives us a timing window where there's not going to be minions in front of us, where we can potentially fish for skill shots. Ezreal ends up shooting the W, which means that he doesn't have blink. So his damage output will be very high, but he won't have any mobility or any way of dodging my Q outside of trading his flash. Because of this, and the fact that we have barrier, we're incredibly tanky and we ping on our way. After that, we fish for a binding and hit both the players. Because of that, we're just stepping back and letting our AD carry wrap around and DPS. Now that we're no longer in threat of 9, we step forward and make sure that we're hitting the binding and DPSing with him. Important things to note are as follows when situations like this. Number 1, keeping track of the skills that get used. Bubble has been missed, wave is pushing, my AD carry can reach their AD carry, and he has trained W, which means that I don't have to worry about mobility. So because of that, we're just going to use our barrier immediately to mitigate as much damage as possible. Ignite goes out, our heal goes out, but all the damage is DPS'd on me, and this is a great easy way for me to just hit a snare on both of them. Especially since we're point blank range, it's a lot harder for them to acknowledge or react to the binding since there's less time for them to respawn. And after that, I want to make sure that I'm not a casualty / lose all my HP and potentially get flashed on and die. A good thing that my AD carry is doing is wrapping around the minions, that way cutting off the escape pattern since they're too far forward now. Basically, my next concern is just making sure to create enough distance and keep track of my HP to know how easily I can or cannot be killed. Now that my AD carry is pushing forward like this, which is very good by him, and my E cooldown is coming back up, I can now reinforce him. So as you can see, I'm starting to walk forward now, and I'm putting an E into this fight, which hits both of these players. Now that the AD carry is dead, I now switch my attention to the Nami. Since Nami has already used Ignite, I don't have to worry about potentially dying, and since my binding is coming back up, I know that it's really hard for people to dodge skill shots at point blank range, so we just launch the binding afterwards while walking forward the entire time. This gives us enough damage to just basically isolate and kill the Nami for free. After that, it's mostly about just identifying what you need to do in the wave. Since the wave is already pushing towards them, we want to get it into the turret as fast as possible. Because of that, I always recommend that you use your spells on the backline, as you can see right here. The reason why this is important is to just make sure that you're not causing your AD carry any unnecessary stress on last hitting minions. If you're hitting the backline minions, those things aren't taking damage from your minion wave, which means that it's just a lot easier for them to finish them off whenever possible, which means you can get them lower whenever you want. On top of that, since we have a huge wave, we just stay and make sure that we get this first plate and step back and make sure we get a good reset in. So after that occurs, then we're going to be upgrading our spell thieves, getting our hands on a pink as you can see right here, and making sure that we get a refillable. Always a big fan of refillable as it just gives you a lot of sustain options, plus it's basically like a built-in gold per 10 since the more times you use it and refill it, the more value you get out of it. Always a big fan and definitely recommend pretty much after your first back getting your hands on a refillable in any lane that you're trading quite frequently. So kind of speeding up, just getting us back into laning phase. And another thing to note too is I have now skilled all 3 of my abilities. The reason for this is whenever you trade extensively in laning phase, the shield actually lets you mitigate a lot of damage and allows you to play way more aggressive and eat more poke as long as you're using the shield correctly. So I'm a big fan of whenever you get far ahead, or if you're just getting poked a decent amount of times, to just get 1 point in the shield in the early stages, and then you can kind of start maxing the E for pressure, just so that you can mitigate anytime harass is going off in this lane. So as you can see right here, we're just constantly stepping onto the side, and the Nami steps too far forward, so we just make her eat a binding. After that, I ping on my way because I want to try and kill her, but unfortunately I mess up a little bit and auto attack a little bit too early, and the E doesn't proc correctly, and I don't do quite enough damage. The main thing to note though is now that we've done this and we've forced the Nami back, and she's substantially low and the wave is pushing into us, we just want to be playing in the brushes once again and throwing skill shots as much as possible. Thankfully, because we have biscuits and refillable, we have a lot of ways to recover our HP, so it's fine. And as you can see right here, we're just always constantly throwing skill shots from brush. Just constantly doing that and just harassing as much as possible. This allows us to hit a lot of skill shots that we normally couldn't because it's a lot harder for the enemy players to dodge. And as you can see, we're just hitting subsequent CC on him and getting a ton of damage in this lane. Another thing to notice is since we're far ahead, I don't have to worry too much about the damage output of them since Ezreal's usually build tier and he doesn't even have enough mana for that. Now, the thing to note about this situation is that we're going to be ended up killing the Nami, but it's more important about the setup. I always use this term, and this term is wrapping. Whenever a wave crashes into each other, that means that there cannot be a minion wave that gets in your way for another 30 seconds. Because of this, I like to use the term wrapping, as in wrapping around the minions after it's crashed. So these waves have collided now. I don't have to worry about potentially things getting in my way or the Kai'Sa's W getting in his way. So because of that, I ping on my way and I walk past the minion wave and retake another brush. This just allows me a lot of open space where if I do hit any skill shots, my Kai'Sa, even if she's not in range, can put the W on, and it allows us to have a lot more kill potential in this. The important thing to note too is this is usually a technique you want to use if the enemy team doesn't have a lot of damage or kill pressure. Since LUX actually outranges the Nami by a substantial margin, especially in your kill threat, aka bubble, I can constantly fish for skill shots whenever I want. Because of this, I just ping on my way, and I'm looking for a skill shot on the Ezreal. The Ezreal gets caught in animation, and we hit the Q. Because of this, my Kai'Sa is able to start surging forward, and I start walking forward too. Just putting the E on top of everybody, and as you can see, because there's no minions in the way, it's really easy for my Kai'Sa to hit her W on this. But Nami does a good job actually stepping in front, trying to protect the AD carry. So instead of just going for the Ezreal anymore, because we've taken the flash out of her already, we can just turn on to the Nami and just kill her instead. Now once again, you can kind of see that the wave is slowly starting to push. So we need to make sure we're keeping track of that just in case we need to end up pushing it all the way into the turret. Since the wave hasn't crashed and I know that there's a ward there because the minions were hitting me as I was walking up, I'm just sitting in this brush and just looking for any skill shots that I can. Sometimes it's okay doing nothing as long as the player is zoned. But since the enemy player is nowhere to be seen, we might end up needing to push this out depending on what happens with the Ezreal. Because I have some downtime, I'm just always trying to keep track of what's going on in other lanes to see if I need to rotate over. It's always a good habit to have in general if nothing is drawing your attention in the lane. Now, since this wave is getting pretty big, and we want to crash it and maybe reset since our mana situation is pretty low, as you can see right there, I always make a habit of E'ing the backline. That way my AD carry can just meanderedly just kill that wave whenever he wants, because it's not taking damage from my minion wave. Now, after that, since I'm winning the lane a lot, I'm a big fan of just getting a Dark Seal, just to solve some mana problems. It goes really well with Mana Flow Ban, and we're going to be getting the Amplifying Tobe, since I'm going to be building mostly damage in this lane. Especially since I'm winning, I want to be doing as much poke as possible, and so that also means that I'm prioritizing getting a pink in the brush. That way I can be shooting skill shots where they cannot see them. So, as you can see right here, once again, we're just in the brush and just chilling. And what you can see right here is the wave is pushing into us. Because we've pushed it into the turret, it's now pushing back into us. Now, the thing to note is a lot of players tend to check skill shots pretty linearly. They do it in a relatively straight line. So as you can see right here on Lux, I'm standing in this very tight corner, pretty much next to the wall, because I know that the Ezreal wants to check this location. I know this location isn't warded because it's pinked in the brush because of my pink, and I'm going to wait for him to step up and ward, because the warding range and the Q range are two different things. Because of that, I know that now he's walking up and warding. He can't react to this because he can't see it right now, and because of that, we're able to hit a snare. Now, since I know that he's already snared and my AD carry can reinforce and we're not hitting from long range, we weave the auto attack in before using the E. That way we just get the most amount of damage and then auto attack once again. Because of that, we're just able to secure another kill and snowball our lead by a substantial margin. So, kind of talking at what I want you to kind of pull from this video is mostly just this. Number one, make sure that you're using your E to harass from long range and don't always force yourself to be auto-attacking, especially in trading situations like against Nami or anything like that, where the enemy player does too much damage. Another thing to note, always shoot your skill shots from brush. It's pretty much the best piece of advice that I can give you on anything that's a skill shot champion, is to always be shooting skill shots from locations where people can't see. Another thing, when you're pushing your lane, always hit the ranged minions. It's way easier on your AD carry if you're just hitting minions that aren't taking damage. That way you can get them the lowest point possible and just let your AD carry last hit it whenever possible. On top of all of this, just make sure that you're playing around the cooldowns of abilities. If your enemy player misses a bunch of skill shots that are important to the all-in potential, make sure you step up, ping on your way. That way you can substantially set up potential kills in the lane, especially like how we did with the Nami bubble. And utilizing the barrier is very important in this because you can take a lot more damage than you really give credit to. Like this video if you want me to make more, and remember to subscribe and hit that bell for notifications so you don't miss out on any new videos. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next time. Peace.